Hey everyone, welcome to the second part of the online EMT cardiovascular system lesson. You may recall that the cardiovascular system is composed of the heart, the blood vessels, and the blood. In part 1 we talked about the heart. In this lesson we're going to talk about the blood vessels and the blood. So let's get started. The cardiovascular system is a very efficient transport and delivery mechanism in the body. The heart pumps blood, which carries essential elements needed by the cells. The blood vessels provide the network of piping through which the blood flows. Blood vessels can be divided into 3 basic categories: those carrying blood away from the heart, those that carry blood back to the heart, and the smallest vessels that permit substances to actually leave and enter the bloodstream. We'll look at each one separately here. Let's start with those that carry blood away from the heart. First are the arteries. They have very thick muscular walls and are able to withstand the pressure generated by the heart's contractions. Arteries then branch into smaller arteries called arterioles. These also have muscular walls, but that allows for vasoconstriction in this case. Changing the diameter of these arteries allows modifications in blood pressure to be able to meet the body's various needs. The smallest arteries will eventually divide and become the smallest blood vessels in our body, the capillaries. Capillaries are microscopic, and their thin walls allow oxygen, nutrients, waste products, and other substances to freely move in and out of these small vessels. I'll show you a little more on capillaries in just a few minutes. Finally, those capillaries join up to form small veins called venules. The venules continue to join to form larger veins that return blood to the heart. Some veins contain valves to facilitate blood flow since there's very little pressure in these blood vessels. Now let's look at the capillaries in a little more detail. On this illustration, we have an arterial side over here on the right. The left side will represent the venous side where blood is being routed back to the heart. The structure in the middle is called a capillary bed, and this is where all of the body's cells are perfused. One thing I want to show you on this diagram are these sphincters. Sphincters are circular muscles that have the ability to close off a tube when they contract. You're probably most familiar with the sphincter in your anus, but that's a lesson for another day. These sphincters are located at the beginning and end of our capillary bed and are called pre- and post-capillary sphincters. In some cases, the body will clamp down on these guys, which causes blood to totally bypass this area. This is what is meant when they say the body can shunt blood from one place to another. You'll learn more about that later. Now we're going to look more closely at this capillary cellular interface. So imagine the blood vessel here is a capillary, and let's say the blood is flowing from left to right. Now I'm going to draw a cell right here. This capillary is carrying oxygen and nutrients that the cell can use. Since the capillary wall is so thin, these substances can diffuse out and enter the cell. At the same time, CO2 and metabolic waste will diffuse into the capillary so that they can be delivered to other areas of the body for removal. For example, the CO2 or carbon dioxide will go to the lungs where it's removed through exhalation. The waste will go to the kidneys for removal. Check out the respiratory and renal lessons for more about these operations. Now let's wrap up with a quick discussion on blood. Blood is considered a liquid tissue. I know that seems kind of weird, but it contains living cells just like all other tissues in our bodies. We can divide blood into its two main components, plasma and what we call the formed elements. Plasma is the liquid content of blood. It is primarily water. In that water, there are dissolved electrolytes like sodium, potassium, calcium, stuff like that. The plasma also contains what are known as plasma proteins. These are protein molecules that help us with jobs like blood clotting and antibodies that are part of our immune system. On the formed element side, we're talking about the blood cells. And there are three types. Red blood cells, called erythrocytes, are necessary for our blood to carry oxygen. There are also white blood cells known as leukocytes. These help us fight disease and infection. Finally, there are thrombocytes or platelets that help us form blood clots, which help us to stop bleeding when a blood vessel is damaged. Now, one last little bit of trivia regarding blood. For blood to effectively do its job, everything has to be in perfect balance. When that balance is messed up, problems happen. For example, if there's too little plasma and too many cells, the blood gets thick, and it's difficult for the heart to pump it around the body. Another example is in diseases where cell numbers are affected. In leukemia, the body overproduces white blood cells. These leukocytes then crowd out the red blood cells and platelets, which leads to a decreased oxygen transport and blood clotting issues. All right, that's it for this lesson. I'll see you in part 3, where we'll wrap up the cardiovascular system.